of the world's economy. If that would intrigue you to discuss this morning, it isn't even up to my usual standards because I really didn't have a lot of time to throw it together. But I've got a couple of, basically think of it as a potpourri again. The overarching subject is the future economy we would like to work toward. And the framing, if you will, is government, energy, efficiency, food, water. I guess that's pretty much it. Does that sound like something that you might be interested in talking about for a couple hours?
I think health and well, health and welfare kind of thing.
Yeah, well, that certainly is part of that frame. And I'd kind of like to frame it also in terms of corruption and versus cooperation, with an overview of philosophy. How would we like to see our economy organized? Clearly, it isn't. I sent you an email, Stan, with a bunch of links on it.
Hold on, I'll find it. Just a second.
Well, it should have come in about 15 minutes ago.
Well, it's still about 7 minutes before 10.
Oh, such
I
a
got
deal.
it. I got it.
Yeah, but unfortunately, I don't have it up. So I need to get it up.
I think part of our societal problems is that we measure everything in terms of economic.
I had a little bit of leftover.
We value things based on their monetary value.
Yeah.
And that does not cover everything of importance. We get a very skewed society because of that. So I don't know if you're going to be touching on that kind of thing, but you did mention economics.
No, absolutely. That's the frame for this discussion this morning. What would we like to see in terms of our economic organization, the future of economics in the world today? I was trying to find a picture that I saw in the last week of the world gross domestic product broken down by country. And on that particular picture, the United States had the biggest economy in the world at about 30% of the world's GDP. China was second at about 20%, which leads me to believe that the numbers were not adjusted for purchasing power parity. The third, maybe Germany at 5%, and then a bunch of, well, there's a group from 3 to 6% that includes Germany, Japan, maybe Korea, India.
What are these percentages based on?
Gross domestic product. The size of the economy by nation. Can
As
anybody
measured,
find?
as measured by domestic product.
Yeah. And I've seen it done both with snapshots of the size of the economy nationally, and then adjusted for purchasing power parity, which brings China up over the United States, I believe. But at about 25 to 40% of the world's gross domestic product. And I'm guessing if you ask the right AI, they could give you a quick either graph or table of the nations of the world by size of the economy. Is there anybody who can find such a thing and post it, share screen with it for us?
I've got it. Let's see, share. How do I share that? There it is. There it is, right there. Share. Okay, so that is, there it is.
What is the source here? Wikipedia?
This is Visual Capitalist on this one, and howmuch.net, and Wikipedia over here. Yeah. That's just what you were saying. I'm not sure the date of this one, of these though.
Well,
Yeah,
if you click on them, you might see it.
none of these have dates. Let's see. Visual Capitalist by it, but it talks about the source over here, but not the date. In 2025, here it is. 2025, 30 trillion U.S., 30 trillion, 19 trillion for China and Germany, Japan and India below that.
If you click show more, it might tell you where it got that information.
Sure, might. No.
That sounds a lot like the visual that I saw.
Yeah. I mean, it's data, so. Yeah. So anyway, 5 top economies, and that's what matters the most.
Well, what I'd like to do is include the next 10 or 20, 15. But that's the idea.
Well, rapid growth, India, Vietnam, and the Philippines, which I kind of doubt the Philippines, but.
Well,
just because it like these other countries are really, this is back in 2017, yeah, so.
that one in the middle,
And this is from 2023.
okay.
There we go.
India, Brazil.
Oh, yeah.
Japan. Okay, the colors are the continents, aren't they? The US, Canada, and Mexico.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Europe.
Here's Here's South America here.
Yep. So basically, economically, we're in a multipolar world. If you look at it from a continental
Thank you.
point of view,
Mhm.
in terms of economic power. And let's see, the one next to it you had that was to the left.
Okay, let me get back to that. How do I do that? This one? No, this one.
Yeah.
Okay, let's see how much. This is in 2020.
So that was a little earlier.
Yep. This one is earlier. The other one was 2025. This is 2020.
I thought you said 2023.
Okay, I misspoke then. 2023, whatever it was.
And again, the United States and China are the two biggest,
Sure.
but China has grown tremendously from 2020 to 2023. And it looks like the United States has grown a little bit. Can you switch back and forth between the two?
Probably. Let's see.
I think you just have to switch, which tab you're looking at.
Well, I broke it into these. Okay. Okay, and this was from, well, you're right, 2023. Okay. How do I get, maybe I can switch back and forth. So there's this one and this one. Yeah. Okay. So,
I will grant
14.3 in 2020 and 19.4 in 2023. So that's a
So
faster
in
growth.
3 years, they went
About
up
$3
$3 trillion.
Yeah.
While the United States went up maybe 1 trillion. Is that right?
Yeah. China. Well, it went from 21 trillion to 26 trillion. So, but look at
5
the
trillion.
yeah.
That's inflation in the United States.
Yeah, that's inflation.
In China, it may be inflation, or it may be and
Actual growth.
I'm guessing it includes some trade expansion because they've intentionally, I believe, attempted to minimize their trade with the United States.
Huh.
But I might be wrong about that. At any rate, we can debate numbers for quite a while.
Mhm.
If you would stop sharing screen,
Okay, I will.
I'll show you
We have a hand up if you want to take comments.
yeah, what I'd like is a lot of help on this discussion.
Okay,
Would you be
Joel.
willing to watch for
Yeah,
the
I will.
hands, Tom?
I will.
And
Go ahead, Joel.
Thanks, Tom. I just unfortunately I have to leave, but this is a very interesting discussion, which I would like to hear. And also, there may be a related discussion coming up on Tuesday. So, with your permission, I'll post the link in the chat. It's the Aurora Philosophy Institute, and its director is talking about, well, it may be a related or even directly connected subject about the nature of money, conflict, and the rise and fall of empires. So if you don't mind, I'll post that in the chat, and I'll wish you guys a great day. I'm sorry that I can't stay longer, but I have
please do
a...
post it. It's
Mhm.
directly connected with this discussion as I'm
Yeah,
visioning it. And
that's what I thought.
come back to the videos that we post a week or two after the discussion, and you should be able to see where we go with our discussion today.
Well, I'll try and do that. I'm traveling at the moment. I'm in Argentina, and very interesting to see the effect of inflation and currency. I was last here about 30 years ago, and it's interesting. Anyway, here's the link. I think it's Tuesday, 7 o'clock. Although I'm a little discombobulated about what day and where I am. I believe it would be 6 p.m. your time. Or maybe it's 8 p.m. I'm sure you'll figure it out. You're a lot better with these things. But it's nice to see everyone again, and I hope to see some of you on Tuesday if I can find my way there myself. It's outside of Toronto. But the speaker is quite an interesting chap. He's a retired economics professor from, I think, York University.
Do you know if they're recording that
I
discussion?
believe I believe they do. I believe
Maybe
they
you
do,
can
but
find the link for us and pass it along.
I don't
If
I
you,
don't spend that much time online, especially when I'm traveling, because I never know when I'm going to have access to the internet, or so I tend to kind of live in the moment. If I'm there, I see what's going on, and if I'm not, I don't tend to hunt
okay,
that much.
well, it sounds
But
like
it's
an
nice to see.
interesting, similar connected discussion.
That's what I thought. That's why I thought I'd post it for you.
And if we
Welcome.
can get a hold of the recording, we could add it to the meetup for today for us so that other people could find it
Yeah.
as a comment.
Anyway,
And welcome as one of our first out of our continent visitors.
yes, am I the first visitor from South America? Although because I'm a Canadian, maybe it doesn't count.
South America, maybe we've had some from Europe.
Yeah,
Does that mean he's incontinent?
3 or 4 years ago, we had a fellow
Nice, Bob.
from Belgium show up several times.
Anyway, I have to go to another meeting, guys. So guys and gals, and be well.
Thank you.
I would say while we have a pause, I
you
have
give-
to announce that I have lost my cell phone, so attempting to contact me by that is not going to work. I believe it's in the snowdrift outside, but I'm not sure.
Can you call it from another phone?
It
Along
says it's
with
not
my-
that.
Along with my
It's
keys.
we have tried find my phone and not all return. There is no phone. So I think it probably went into a snowbank and froze.
Ooh.
And I'm going to go out later and dig through the snowbank with a fork and maybe find it and bring it in and thaw it. But I think I'm buying a new one.
It's probably lost its charge by now if you tried to call it.
No, this was 2 days ago. I was trying to get it to respond.
Uh-huh.
Yeah, no, I'm sure it's dead now.
You'll find it in the spring, and
Yep.
you probably can buy a new battery for it and maybe even resurrect it. I seem to have done something with my Zoom window, and I can't even see the Zoom meeting,
Dear.
which is not going to make it easy for me to.
Well, it's probably there minimized somewhere.
Well, that's what I thought, but
Could you
that
go
isn't
down
what
to
it
the
looks
bottom
like.
of your taskbar or wherever that is and find it?
On Apple, there's an icon on the very top showing if you're not looking at it, it might be orange. When you're on it, it's green. If
Yeah,
you see
well,
it,
I'm not on Apple to start
Okay.
with.
all right, it might still be there somewhere in your.
I'm
your
actually
icon.
using a Linux platform.
Well, at least, David, your audio is good today. That's
Your audio and video are both fine.
I'm glad that's true, but it's going to make it very hard for me if I can't open with. I'm trying to open a open office document.
For the latecomers here, this is not our normal presentation that was scheduled. Because the
Gonna ask that. Yeah.
presenter had to go to the hospital.
Oh, no, is he okay or?
David has the story. If you want to
Well,
read
he's
it.
in for testing, as I understand it. So instead of presenting on the future of medicine, he's,
Going to
Practicing.
be partaking in it.
Yeah.
yes, partaking of it. The irony is pretty extreme.
Did you say which, what was wrong or?
No, Stan, do you know what Dean's?
actually, I'm surprised kind of because, I know Dean pretty well, and the first I've ever heard about his being in the hospital is from you just now.
Oh, no, he's not in the hospital. He went to the emergency room yesterday and they said, come back for some more testing tomorrow morning at 7 o'clock our time. And since 7 o'clock their time is 9 o'clock our time, he
Gotcha.
sent me a text message last night saying he wouldn't be able to present this morning because he was going to have to go back to the hospital for some more testing.
Okay.
Just as another quick update, this is Doug, and
Yep.
wife went into emergency 2 Fridays ago and spent 5 days in the hospital, and now is in a nursing home probably for the remainder of her time from the way it looks. So been a major change in my life.
Is that hospice care?
Well, it's not quite to that level yet,
Okay.
but it's been. I tried to get her in Apple Valley where we live and Burnsville. That didn't work. And it ended up that the social worker said, maybe you want to try Farmington. And I said, Farmington, are you kidding me? I've never saw them. Well, she said, try it. They have a good rating. I'll tell you what, you guys, I took her in there and 10 minutes later, I thought, this is the place. The people are unbelievable. The place is unbelievable. It looks like a luxury hotel. I mean, it's got trees and fountains on one end and the koi fish, and the other end's got like a facade of like a Swiss village. And it's just really amazing place. Most of the people have been there working at least 4 years, and some of them 20 years. So it's to me that makes a statement. But it's about 11 miles south of me, so it's a bit of a drive every day. But my son and his wife went down this morning, so I thought I'd go this afternoon so I could catch the meeting. But anyway, major change.
Right.
Yeah.
About your wife, Doug.
Which is,
Sorry about your wife. Yeah,
Oh.
Farmington we get down to Farmington about once a month for this or that or the other.
Say a quick possible answer, David. Press Alt and Tab.
oh,
Alt
Alt
tab.
Tab. Did that do
No.
anything? Okay, try this. Alt plus space, then M.
Wait a minute.
Alt
Alt
space.
Space, then M.
Space.
Yes.
M?
then M. Yes.
That didn't do what I
Okay.
needed either.
Oh, they're trying. Then they say restart Zoom. So
Yeah.
that was for Linux.
Thanks.
Anyway, good luck. Yeah.
right. Yeah.
Well, as far as being able to be positioned for disruption in the energy sector, comparing, well, I'd like to be able to say that China is way ahead of us. We all kind of know that. But I'm hoping that the illusion of this particular administration being against the movement towards renewable energy is not really affecting the reality of us moving towards renewable energy, because the numbers are basically going to outweigh the political desire.
Minnesota also just passed a law saying that burning garbage is renewable energy. And they had a lot of pushback, but they're saying, you know, it's still better than, and even though it releases a lot of carbon, but it's still better than just burying it and getting methane gas and everything. So, but that's kind of a downer to hear that.
I
think
agree with you, Doug.
And that it's taken effect in Duluth so far at their plant. And
Well,
the big,
Minneapolis burns a lot of our
right,
garbage
right.
at
That's,
the incinerator.
yeah, that's what they said, that the next move will probably be in Minneapolis to try to pull that one in. So,
Well,
yeah,
the plan, as I understand it, for Minneapolis for the garbage burner is to close it down within 5 years.
yeah, it was. And they said this is going to change what's been the plan for the, what is that one called, David? There's a name they call it.
Oh, it's the garbage burner,
Yeah, there's
the incinerator.
yeah. It's like Chubb or something like that. Somebody was calling it, but anyway, it's just that, boy, that's disappointing to hear, but you know, you kind of understand where they're coming from, but.
well, Trump is not against renewable energy. It's just he's against fanatics forcing it on us at great expense, where and when it's not yet economically practical.
Okay, that seems like a reasonable approach to take. Let's not put any names on particular approaches, because even if you say Trump,
Yeah, well, that's
I
what
think you can find him saying contradictory things over time.
well, don't know.
Why don't we talk a little more about efficiency?
Yeah.
And in particular, the whole argument in favor of electrification, using electricity to accomplish what we want to accomplish, has a significant efficiency advantage over combustion to accomplish a task in many cases, because you don't lose so much of the fuel to heat.
Oh, I'm all for it when without, if it's at a pace it can be done without undue economic costs to people of limited means, which is what he's trying to generally help appeal to.
Okay.
David, the word I was looking for is HERC. They call it HERC, the Hennepin Energy Recovery Center, HERC.
Yep.
Yeah, yeah.
And that's maybe green and maybe not. Mostly not.
Yeah,
but I mean, that's an example. Cities have significant problems with sewage and garbage.
Oh, yeah.
Well, infrastructure in general, but sewage and garbage in particular. And if we could figure out how to deal with those more efficiently, potentially we would not have some of the negative consequences, the costs associated with dealing with sewage and garbage. Recycling seems to be a way to deal with garbage potentially at a lower life cycle cost, if that makes sense.
Yeah, items that will, self-destruct, so to speak.
Well, composting for organics
Yeah,
is definitely the way to go.
yeah.
Why heat them up to 1500 degrees Fahrenheit to break them down when yeasts and microorganisms will do the job at ambient temperature? It just takes longer.
And without putting the waste products into the atmosphere.
Exactly.
Hopefully, robots will in not too long, will be able to help with probably an unpleasant task of sorting all our waste into appropriate categories. And
Rather than calling them robots, why don't we call that automation?
well, because it'll probably take it may take humanoid robots to do that, intelligent. And
Speaking of that, I just want to share with you guys where my wife is. All of a sudden, I see this thing coming down the hall, and it's a robot, whatever you want to call it, delivering food. And then the other night, I'm walking out of the place, and coming down the hall is a robot cleaning the floor. So it's happening.
Well,
Are these-
absolutely.
Are
And
these androids? Do they look like humans?
they don't have to be necessarily, but it's just like as Lex Friedman and others and Elon was. If you study the human hand and what you have to do, and it's just phenomenally efficiently evolved, and I don't think anybody's in general come up with anything close as far as overall efficiency or
Speaking of
versatility.
hands, we probably should raise them. Warren's had his up for a little while now, so.
Tom, would you please call on people for me when that's the case? Because I still am not to the point where I can see it.
Okay.
Talking about efficiency, I just wanted to report this morning, I had to go.
Could you get a little closer to your mic, Warren?
Oh, sorry.
Or raise the volume, either one.
No, it's this. Okay, so, but this morning at 4 o'clock, I had to go to a church to turn the boiler back on, because I noticed that the temperatures were like 40 degrees, close to 40 degrees in the sanctuary of this church. Anyway, so the boiler had cut out because a low water cutoff had, I don't think there was low water, but anyway, it had tripped somehow. And so, but on the way, I took the Tesla, and it was about between 600 and 800 kilowatts per mile that it took, and normally it's around 200 instead of 600 to 800. It's normally 200, but it was because it was 18 degrees below zero. So that was that's an efficiency issue with the electric cars. I just wanted to kind of report that. On the sewage issue, I mean, that's a lost leader. I mean, it only is cost. There is never any benefit from something like that.
I would like to suggest that could change, but you're right. The way we have done it in the past, it's always a cost.
Okay.
David?
Yes.
Stan's next.
Yeah, I was just going to say, while these people are talking, might you be better off getting out and getting back in?
Yeah, there is definitely that possibility.
Just a suggestion.
Right.
All I was going to say was that I did an experiment back around 2005, 2006-ish with Roombas. I bought a Roomba and I bought the warranty, and I think I basically exchanged it 9 times over a period of about 2 or 3 years. And then I gave up on it. And my only observation is that this is something that a colleague of mine who was an electrical engineer at Tenet Company, I think that if you're using a computer with hard drives and processors to do nasty, dirty work, it's a challenge. And one of the things that he basically did for Tenet is that he was able to use analog circuitry to do a lot of the work that the processor was needed to do, and he was able to be able to get it to perform better under harsh conditions.
Back to the waste problem. Measuring it using economics again doesn't give the whole picture, because economics does not consider the side effects, you might say. The reason it's important for especially high density population areas to properly dispose of that kind of waste is disease mitigation. For one thing, we're in a lot better shape now than we were 200 years ago when people were dumping their garbage in the streets, because we don't get sick from it the way they used to. I mean, there's a lots of things that are not measured by our current economic system that really should be, and included when you make these calculations as to what's worth doing and what isn't.
Are there any other hands up at the moment?
Harold's hand is up.
Okay.
Yes, I was going to say, we don't have to trace the typhoid epidemic back to that one well in London.
Okay, David, why don't you go ahead if you can.
Well, I was going to start off with an introductory headline. There's a Wired article that I read titled "The AI Boom Will Increase U.S. Carbon Emissions, but it doesn't have to." And it came out January 21st, so it's quite recent.
Is that one that you sent to Stan?
I sent a sort of an outline to Stan. And yes, it was the first item on that outline. I should have sent it to you also.
I'm presenting it right now.
I can see it.
Yeah.
Can you see it, David?
The reason I was planning to lead off with that article, at least the cover, the headline on the article, and it's not that I think this is the future. I think that future can be argued against also.
Well, the subtitle on it says that a new analysis finds that data centers' energy demands will drastically increase power plant emissions over the next decade. Renewables, though, could cut them while keeping prices from rising.
Right. And I think, as I recall, the discussion goes into, well, the study was done by the Union of Concerned Scientists. The prediction was that the carbon emissions from power plants would increase between 19 and 29% over the next 10 years, just due to the needs of data centers. That's a forecast that's probably higher than will actually happen. And I'm predicting that, I'm forecasting that for a couple of reasons. The scenarios that I would imagine decreasing those numbers include the fact that fossil fuels are getting more expensive and solar photovoltaics are getting less expensive.
And
So-
batteries.
Well, absolutely. Batteries
They've
on
just,
the-
the bottom fell out. Yeah.
on a similar trajectory for batteries to what has been happening for solar
Yep.
photovoltaics. They're getting used more, and so the advantage for the companies that manufacture them is to create disruptive innovation that reduces the price and allows them to maintain their market share. And the biggest battery company in the world is in China and has been building batteries for electric bicycles and now electric vehicles for the last 20 years. And they have grown from minuscule to the biggest company in the world. I think it's Cattle, C-A-T-L. Somebody want to check that for me with Wikipedia?
It's cattle. CATL.
Yep,
Are you ready for questions?
sure.
Okay, I think I'm first and then Eric, then Doug. Emissions is not the only problem with data centers. The other main problem is cooling. And for that, they need lots of water. So that means they're either going to be using water from, they have to build new rivers, or they're going to be using up the groundwater. It's the same thing with nuclear power. That's why you always see nuclear power plants near a river. So there's not only the heating of the water while they're cooling the equipment, but possible pollution of the water too. So we have to be cognizant of that as well as the power usage and the emissions.
Yes, and water is definitely one of the big factors that I wanted to talk about here today for a couple of reasons. One, my understanding is, and I should say not just water, I should say fresh water or water that's not salty.
I think
My
the word you
understanding is
want is
it's
potable.
potable water. Thank you. That'll do. My understanding is that 70% of the fresh water that humans use is used for agricultural irrigation. And I
Yep.
think we could discuss how that could be changed if we wanted to. And again, how do we decide what we want to do and what's ethical to do? That's philosophy. What's cost effective to do is economics.
Short run.
It's complicated. It's also all connected. We could start any place we wanted to and get to almost any of the rest of this discussion because it's all connected.
Okay, Doug, you're next. Oh, well, is it Doug or Eric?
Yeah, somebody keeps taking my hand down. I don't know how or why, but at least two comments on the efficiency, emissions of costs of new data centers. Just a day or so ago, Jensen Huang at one of his really impressive presentation, I think it was at Davos, he said his chips are each generation, which is about every 18 months now. Like, for example, going to from
Excuse me, Eric, that's the president of NVIDIA, is it?
oh, sure. I thought everybody knew.
Well, just so everybody who might not know knows.
Okay. Yeah, and every generation it's increasing in efficiency, energy efficiency tenfold. And then also, Elon Musk said fairly recently that he's basically driving everything that to do with the future, and that within 2 to 4 years it'll be practical to start building data centers in space with using endless free emission-free solar energy, 724. So right, those two. And then, of course, AI, as it gets more advanced, will help figure out ways to make all of our emission-creating procedures and processes more energy efficient if we ask it to.
And of course, we're going to ask it to. That's one of the problems that any corporation that's running AI is going to have, is how do you make your costs lower? And you probably should also mention the Chinese AI that was so much cheaper to train. What's the name of it?
Deep scan.
But it's not as huge of the experts don't think it's as huge a leap as most of the public does.
Well, anyway, the potential for cooling computer machine intelligence, either in space or in an ocean, there are significant possibilities, let's just say, that would reduce the costs compared to what's being done right now.
Yeah, well, Jensen's one, he's doing that right now. He's starting the transition to Rubin from Blackwell series to Rubin series, and he claims a tenfold increase in energy efficiency. Well, how much more do you want to do?
So Moore's law isn't done quite yet, we think. Whether it's through software or hardware, the cost to do machine intelligence may not be as high as it's presently predicted.
Yeah, right.
Right, we're reaching limits for size of transistors and that kind of thing, but then we have quantum computing and things like that that may get around that type of thing.
So potentially we might be able to get around those kinds of issues. But back to the question of, is this necessary? Is this the direction we want to go? Can it be done more cheaply? There's some philosophical issues here that are not straightforward. And then there's always the question of, can you predict the future? Or are you better off doing what they did in the early 1970s with the MIT computer modeling study, Limits to Growth, where they laid out about 10 different general directions and said, this is what our models suggest. And then people have been looking to see how close the world economy actually came to those different scenarios that they modeled at MIT in 1970-ish. There was a study done for a master's thesis in the last 5 years that said the economy has developed most closely to one of their scenarios that they had titled business as usual. It's about time we started changing the economy, because the model says that economy will crash within the next 15 years or so, at which point we will reduce the world population by something between 20% and 50% or 60%. And we will reduce the world's gross domestic product by something like that, because some of the changes to the ecosystem cannot be reversed. If we increase the temperature by 5 degrees centigrade, that's going to do a number on our economy and our population. We can expect to be reducing both by a lot. Does that make sense?
So that's following that particular scenario that we're currently on track with.
Exactly.
Okay. Doug's had his hand up for quite some time.
Yeah.
I just was going to mention something. I just read that Shell Company has developed a new fluid for cooling computers, which could in some cases has replaced water. So that was kind of an interesting thought, and I can't remember the technical name of it, but it sounded real interesting. The other thing I just wanted to share on the cost of batteries.
Just a sec, Doug, before you go on beyond that, is that one of the fluorocarbons?
I do not remember, David. I'd have to go back and look it up.
Okay.
But
Well,
it's like a whole new road that, because of water issue. And I know on the energy issue, XL president just gave a major speech and said, as far as anything in the near future, they feel very comfortable that they have enough energy to handle it, partially because of extending the life of Monticello and Prairie Island. So
Yeah.
we'll see how that works.
well,
The other
at
thing,
a cost.
the other thing I want to mention that I thought was really interesting. I talked to my friend last week up in North Branch, farther north than that. But anyway, he's been living off grid for over 20 years, and he increased the number of PV panels in his system, and he replaced the batteries. He said the original batteries were like 13,000. And he replaced them with lithium batteries. And I think he said it was something in the area of like $7,500 or something. It was just amazing how the price differential, he couldn't believe it himself. So it was, that was really encouraging to hear. And he said he actually picked up some capacity by doing that. So, and he's been living, like I say, off grid for a number of years, and he's an electrical engineer, and he, has quite a system set up to do all that. But the fact that, battery price had dropped that much, I thought was pretty amazing. So anyway.
Yep. Did he tell you where those batteries were manufactured?
No, he did not. I did not ask.
That would be an interesting question to ask him. Where were they manufactured? And what does he figure his electricity is costing him
Jesus Christ.
based on his experience of the last 20 years?
Yeah, yeah. Yeah, there's another guy that lives actually down the road from him a little ways. He's a major installer of solar and all kinds of things here in Minnesota. He's been off grid for close to 40 years. And and you know, he used to, maybe I told you guys this, but he brought his product, some of his solar, to the fair, and we used to use it and stuff. And then his wife complained that she couldn't, do certain things at home because she didn't have any electricity.
Oh,
So
no.
yeah, so he said he offered to do it again the next year, and I said, well, didn't your wife get upset last year? And he said, yeah, she did, but I put in a wind turbine in the meantime. So, it's just, I mean, both of those guys are super creative in what they've been doing. So anyway, thank you.
No, those are nice examples for part of this discussion because one of the things that I intended to show you was a discussion of the United States giving away to China those two markets. China is manufacturing most of the solar photovoltaic and most of the wind generation equipment for much of the world, at least except for Europe and North America. China is manufacturing most of the solar photovoltaic and most of the wind generation equipment for Africa and a lot of Asia.
Yeah. Our Minnesota manufacturer just combined with another company, and they said that they feel that will, change. I mean, they're like 90% American made, but now they've added some other thing that's supposed to get them even closer to 100%. So I'm real glad that that's happening in Minnesota. I don't know the details of that one yet. I'm going to check on it, but it's the company Helene that just opened a big manufacturing plant in Rogers, and I was up there, and it's pretty amazing. You talk about robotic things. I mean, for every person on the line, there's a robot on the line also. So, or a robotic system. And, so
an automated system.
Yep. I mean, they have people working there, but the owner told me that it kind of right now, it's like one for one. And, they're the closest thing. One of the very few in the U.S. that's close to American made. And, they had I forget how many panels they're putting out an hour. It was unbelievable. Now, I don't know if that's all going to change with what's happened, but his plant had enough space to add another line. So he's really ready for the future if it keeps going. And all of my friends are saying, residential solar is probably going to slow down considerably, but commercial and utility solar looks like it's going to keep going pretty strong. So we'll see how that works out this year.
And there's an interesting question there associated with Excel, because a lot of the gateway to putting residential solar on the electricity system, you have to get it approved by Excel.
Yeah. You could do 120% of what you used the year prior is what they do right now.
Is what they will let you put on without any question, right?
Yeah.
More than that, you're competing with them, and it's commercial or utility scale.
We had community solar program in Minnesota was like leading the nation for many, many years, and Excel was supporting it, and now they're starting to politically push back, and the reason, from a business standpoint, I guess makes sense, is the fact that electricity costs them so much more than the solar that they have themselves that they can use.
Exactly.
Yeah.
They're not making nearly as much money off of rooftop solar or the other one,
Yeah,
community.
the big thing is batteries, and I think they just install like 1,000 batteries in their distribution system to save their own power, not the renewable.
Exactly. Yes, exactly. And so the question is, what are the incentives and how do we change the incentives? Because Xcel and all of the rest of the utilities in the United States are regulated by the government. So it can be changed if we choose to do that. And the question is, what kind of economy do we want to see? Do we want to see an economy where there's a cliff ahead of us and we're rushing toward it? Do we want to kill off half the population of the world in the next 50 years? And I think the answer most of us would say is not really. That doesn't sound like a good idea.
We still have a few hands up.
Sure. I expected that would bring up some.
Okay, Carol, go ahead.
Is that me?
Yes.
Okay. I wanted to mention, speaking of irrigating with potable water, back in the late 40s, when the UN voted Israel into existence, they had an enormous influx of brain power. People all over the world going to Israel for 5 years and working, to help the place get going. And one of the things that they did was send a lot of their agronomists to the US to be educated in what they called dry farming. And at that time, our prairie states were developing techniques of, again, what they call dry farming. And some of it literally went to the point of laying down transparent stuff like saran wrap on your farmland and punching through it to set your seeds, and thereby keeping water from evaporating from the soil. And eventually, the Israelis took over as the experts in dry farming, the experts in getting the most out of a farmland without using a lot of water to irrigate it. And that is quite significant right now. And we should be doing more of it.
And we could easily do that if we chose to.
Yes.
Okay, Stan's you're next. And then Eric, and then H-Tom.
Well, I was just going to say that when this is a response to Eric's comment about Jensen Huang from the NVIDIA coming up with more efficient processors so that they can get 10 times. I think that the challenge for being able to develop the passage of more power with higher efficiency is that's offset by an increase in demand. So they don't think that there's really that much benefit for the planet in terms of the overall offset of that kind of thing. So as soon as you make something cheap enough and more plentiful, if it's desirable, people would just want more of it. It's kind of like not it. It's kind of like the problem of adding more lanes of freeway. You just get more traffic on that freeway kind of thing.
And more
Well, the other example would be, I think there was a study done with the ENIAC where they said they could use 17 computers for the whole world or something like that. That'd be all they need. Yeah. Or you build Huber Dam and they put Las Vegas right next to it. That's my favorite joke about that.
Right.
Okay, Eric.
Yeah, two things. Well, first, all these clickbait headlines that people put up don't usually never really factor in the ability of human innovation, capacity of humans to innovate. And secondly, China's undeniable increasing lead in energy is, well, it's partly achieved by their almost total disregard of the effects on environment and human health. One of my two best friends was there a few years ago because his wife's Chinese, and nobody was drinking tap water. And let's see what else. Oh yeah, and our failure to adapt efficient, progress faster and further in things is. Well, again, proof, overwhelming evidence of the increasing failure or dysfunctionality of our form of government, which is a combination of universal direct democracy and lobbyocracy. And eventually that'll change in some way.
Not eventually. It's changing as we speak.
Yeah, and possibly violently, looking at history objectively.
Well, if you're looking at history objectively, and there have been people who've studied that, they predict that countries that have had civil wars in the past are more likely to have civil wars in the future. And so the US is right in there. So talking about corruption and cooperation is definitely part of this question about where we want to see the economy of the world go in the next 50 years.
Tom, you're next. You're muted.
Dry farming. John Deere was involved in that. And we did dry farming experiments in South Dakota, not the most moist environment in the world. There are problems with covering fields with plastic. It works very well in a gym-sized lab. It's just neat as all get out. But when you actually stake that plastic down in South Dakota, there are problems. Usually the problems have 2 or 4 legs. And they object to the plastic. And they discover if you bite the plastic and pull, it breaks. And then it blows in the wind and wads up and pulls up the plants that are supposed to be growing through it. And it did not work well, which is why they rapidly changed to using the drip systems where you have a hose and you poke a hole over where you put the seed and let the not try and keep everything in the earth. It's also why Israel has some absolutely huge greenhouses. that exclude birds, mice, raccoons, and other people who object to plastic.
Yeah,
That's a great idea.
Oddly, hydroponics can conserve a lot of water.
Yeah.
Carol, your hand's up again?
Yes. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay. David, when you were talking about the business as usual scenario, did that take into account the rather extreme lowering of the birth rate that we have seen, since 1970?
I'm not
Like
sure.
the one-child policy in
Yep.
China and.
Yep. By the way, China is not exceptional with their one-child policy decreasing the birth rate. As I understand it, that's getting more and more common worldwide as we go from rural to urban. That's why Africa now is the only continent where the population is still expected to increase over the next 15 years. Every place else, the population is shrinking,
Okay, and what I'm asking is,
as I understand it.
did this business as usual scenario take into account the lowering of the population? Or the ceasing to expandness of the
Yeah.
population?
It's been years since I read that, and I don't remember exactly, so I can't answer that question. What I can tell you is that they expected the population to drop because they expected the food production with the business as usual scenario. They expected the population to drop after the food production had dropped. And the question is, if this is the most likely path that our economy is on, can we change it? And can we agree that we don't want to go there? Because as far as I can tell, the rich are still agitating in the United States for the rules to favor them.
Everybody is.
No,
what
not
everybody does.
everybody is.
Yes.
Everybody who has any power is agitating for that. One of the definitions that I talked about a couple of months ago for corruption was favoring your economy over the economy that benefits the rest of the people or the majority of the people. One of the arguments in favor of cooperation is that if everybody gets a piece of the pie, we might be able to persuade everybody to expand the pie rather than trying to continue with business as usual. Clearly, the big corporations, what is it, the big seven that are involved in AI development in the United States at the moment, would like to continue business as usual. They don't want the government regulating how they develop AI. Is that true?
No. They want the government to interfere in their behalf.
Well, of course.
Yeah.
Yes, I agree. You're right.
Regulators.
Regulatory capture is a regular feature of our government, and we call it corruption. but it does seem to exist in many cases.
Go ahead, Tom.
As far as the population question, there's a couple things driving it. Basically, as societies get more affluent, they tend to get more urbanized. And in urban settings, you don't want a lot of kids. You want one or two maybe. But in an agrarian society, you want a lot of kids working on the farm. That's why they have a lot of kids. They need the workers, is what it basically amounts to.
Well, there's a
And I'm not
complication
done
there.
yet. But a mitigating factor of that is that as robotics and so forth improves, you're not going to need as many human workers to grow the food, to
Exactly.
raise the cattle. And so it might be another factor reducing population growth. The fact that we have these mechanical slaves, you might say, working instead of having to grow humans to do it.
Right.
So, there's a couple factors there that will tend to naturally decrease or at least decrease the growth of population, if not decrease the total population itself.
Right. And as the reproductive rate drops below 2.1, we can expect the population to level off and gradually decrease, depending on how much below that 2.1 number it drops. That's mitigated somewhat. It doesn't have to be 2.1. It used to be 2.3, but the medical technology has gotten better and we're living longer. So it's complicated.
H. Tom is next.
Yeah, it's not only is it complicated, it's complex.
Yes.
Two things. Way back when, the Club of Rome said that the maximum carrying capacity of the planet Earth was somewhere between 12 and 18 billion. But they doubted we would ever get that many. I think at the time the world population was probably like 4 or maybe
Yep.
5.
I remember that.
And
they published the Limits to Growth book that I talked about from MIT.
But since then, agriculture has grown tremendously. I mean, when I was in high school, I think this was in the 1960s, a big corn picker, giant top of the line corn picker was 4 rows. And people had a hard time figuring out how you could grow that much corn that you would need that critter. Now I think the biggest corn head is a 40 or a 44 head picker.
Ooh.
And it's over 150 feet wide.
Wow.
And it's a miracle to watch these things work. And what happens when they pick up a big stone and clunk, and you stop. And then you wait for the certified John Deere repair people to come and fix it.
Because they don't let you fix it yourself.
And meanwhile, the corn keeps growing and then it dies. And there are limits to this that some of them are natural limits and some of them are, I'm going to classify it as shooting ourselves in both feet.
Yep.
And then trying to run a marathon.
Right.
because that's what it is. Getting all this food harvested to all of those mouths. And unfortunately, most of those mouths have no idea of what's involved in putting a cornflake in their bowl. And legislation pretty much only interferes with that process. It doesn't help. Next.
Doug,
I just wanted to say, Tom, we used to pick a 110-acre field with a single roll picker.
Yeah, I can.
It took a long time. The question I had for all of you, just in case, I was down a few times to Maharishi University in Fairfield, Iowa, and it's they have a community there that is like an eco community, and they had like about a 2-acre enclosed greenhouse that ran year round. And when we talked to them and asked them about how that worked, and they said it was wonderful. I mean, all of the produce that they had in there, and they actually had a small little farm tractor in there. And I know the biggest greenhouse in Iowa is like 14 acres, I think. But anyway, this is a couple acres, but they were really unhappy. And I said, well, why would you be unhappy? This is wonderful. It takes care of your community. They said, well, the problem is we're growing so much food and we don't want to waste it. So we've been trying to take it to Chicago. And if we start adding in the cost of transportation and the emissions and everything from the vehicles, it makes it, not a good deal. And to me, that just kind of threw me that, they were unhappy that they raised too much food in the place. So it couldn't be consumed by the local community. But anyway, I was just curious, anybody heard of that place? It's really interesting. If you ever get a chance.
Right off of Interstate 90?
No, they're ways down in Iowa. Like I say, they're in the community of I believe it's Fairfield, Iowa.
Okay.
And anyway, if you ever get a chance, they're really interesting place down there. That's close to us. It's not quite as sophisticated as like the University of Minnesota out at Morris and all the stuff they're doing, but it's really a kind of a different way of living and growing their own food and everything. So I just wanted to share that with people. If they ever get a chance to take a trip down there, it's really an interesting place to go.
Hey, Eric.
Yeah, maybe some of you guys, farm guys, can answer a question for me. When my son and I rode Amtrak out to Seattle or back, and it's going through all that farm country, we'd see an astounding amount of huge, apparently what looked like huge old farming machines, apparently just rusting away out in the fields there. And that seems like not at all efficient, or why is that, or what is going on to isn't they're dysfunctional? They're like seem to be rusted and just sitting there, huge masses of rusting machinery.
Some of that stuff, even when I was a kid, like Tom, in the 60s, I mean, we had a bunch of machinery along a fence, and it just sat there, and it was because they were using it for horses, with horses. And, we then got tractors and, everything changed. And so some of the people out there, go out and collect and sell the metal and stuff. But, yeah, you go out through the Dakotas, you see that fairly often.
Yeah. Well, isn't there something,
Excuse me, can I interrupt? This is getting a little bit off the question that I want to deal with. And we could spend a lot of time talking about side issues, but I'd really like to get back to how can we be intentional about the economy? And the last thing you said, Tom, I wanted to jump in and take off from there. And now I can't remember what it was you said.
No, that's right.
Pressure repair of your combine?
No, but that's getting back toward it.
Well,
Right to repair is a side issue, a
Yeah.
detail.
Yeah.
What I'd like to get into is this cooperation and corruption with regard to government.
Mm.
How do we decide what direction we want to go, and how can we as futurists help the discussion?
We can't.
It's hard enough. Well, it's hard enough to see where things are going, but certainly the progression from 1-row planters to 44-row planters, combines, automation has been getting bigger and more sophisticated. In terms of mowing grass, they're coming up with things like Roombas, where you're talking about a computer-controlled piece of automation of some sort.
They've been around a long time.
Yep.
Yeah. There's a Husqvarna Roomba for your lawn.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But that may or may not make good economic sense for somebody who's got a 5-acre lawn. Is that the direction we want to be going, though? If that if the biggest likelihood is that we're going to hit a cliff for population, do we want to be on that path?
David, the biggest problem is somebody having a 5-acre lawn.
Yeah, exactly.
Nevada, especially, or Arizona.
I think the point I was going to make is somewhat relevant to this. Back to the food. Food production is not the problem. We produce enough food to feed everybody. Starvation exists because of the distribution system. We do not distribute the food very well, and that kind of relates to what you're talking about, David. There's different facets of this that we need to improve, and production generally is not one of them. It's other factors that are the problem. Distribution of energy, of food, of whatever, like our electrical grid is a big problem, are really part of the main problem. Does that kind of bring things back to what you're trying to?
Yes, exactly.
In
We talk a bit about the wisdom of a crowd, but then we really don't let everybody in the crowd vote, or we try to limit the voting, limit the counting of the votes to the people who voted our way. That strikes me as being a bad idea.
I'm not sure. We have been involved in a long experiment with voting, and I am not sure anymore that voting is necessarily a good thing. It assumes that the voter is intelligent and informed about the issues they're voting about. If I was to go to Phillips community up the road there and have the inhabitants vote on how to feed the hogs, I think the hogs would be very unhappy.
Yeah.
And I think in the long run, the community would be very unhappy as well. But they don't understand what they're doing with their votes. And one of my best friends was in the Minnesota legislature for a decade, and he finally just not going to run anymore. He says Minnesota has changed from being an agricultural state to being a liberal city.
Yeah.
Now he came from down in southern Minnesota. He says the Twin Cities are ruling the state, and voting is meaningless. As a legislature, my vote is meaningless. He says we're just outvoted. At that time, two-thirds of the Minnesota legislature was from the 5 counties. And there was like 1,000 acres of farmland.
In the 5 counties.
In the 5 counties. And they were essentially ruling the rest of the state.
Yeah.
Well,
with
and half
total
the population,
ignorance. The thing is, I hate to say it this way, some people's lives, perhaps, including mine, are not as useful to an ongoing society as someone who's out there planting crops to feed me. What I want and what he needs need to align.
Mhm.
And when we have too many city folk who don't understand that how corn grows, we're heading for a disaster.
They're more interested in what's happening with the Vikings.
Who?
Yeah. Well, if you look at how universities and colleges raise money, you would say it's lots more about the sports department than it is about the library
Yep.
Mm-hmm.
Or the laboratory.
or the laboratory.
The number of libraries in Minnesota is going down.
Well, the cost of a book has gone down.
Was
The
9
cost of a book
billion.
for the university has gone up.
Well, the use of YouTube makes a difference too.
Yep.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
Carol's next.
Yes, in our Constitution, we have an attempt to address the urban versus farmland issue, in that we have the House being elected by population and the Senate 2 per state. And this is supposed to balance out the overwhelming
various
advantage of the urban
different-
population.
Yeah,
It's
the
Mhm.
various different segments of society as they existed back 250 years ago. I
Hmm.
held up the book Planethood by Benjamin Ferencz and Ken Keyes. It was again published about 1970, I believe. And they point out that when the Constitution was written, this was an experiment. This was something that hadn't been done in European
Mhm.
government up until that time.
Well, in ancient Greece and Rome, it had.
Maybe, sort of, but not
Mm,
The
exactly.
ideas of some rights for most of the freemen, anyway.
Yeah, maybe, sort of, perhaps, as we understand it.
that's what they relied on. And
But most of the people were not free men in
Exactly.
those societies.
Mhm.
Certainly half of them weren't.
Well, and it depends on the historians writing and the victors wrote the story.
Yep.
So a lot of the education we've got has been filtered through historians and victors over the last couple thousand years. So
And I
we
believe
could
that
argue, we could argue about that for quite a while also. But again, the question is, can we use government to manage the economy? Well, maybe. And that depends on who's going to run government. And I don't think there's any question that in the United States, we have not had free and fair elections that were honestly counted over the last 25 years in case after case. Hanging chads in Florida. The Supreme Court stopped the counting in 2000. Was that done fairly, honestly? Probably not. How many times has it happened since then? More than I want to count. Even one would be more than I want to count, but more than once. Who's next?
I have a question for you, David, first. Are there any important videos you want to show? I mean, you sent a list of things.
Yeah, I have a number of videos that I'd be mildly amused to amuse you with, particularly around the issue of food.
well, why
But-
don't we
It's not a issue of getting everyone to be able to vote. It's that please read Heinlein's novella Gulf in sort of support of what Tom Trites said. Even in 1949, he explained, I think, very clearly that the vast majority of people are basically decent and well-meaning. Well, they just, to be, I don't know how to say it, not crudely, but they're not intelligent or informed enough nearly. And that was in 1949 about the complexities of the modern world to make rational decisions, and they're very easily conned. And the conners are getting much better. People conning us, they've studied Kahneman's Thinking Fast and Slow and the foibles of human thinking and so on, and they exploit them.
The problem is there's a lot more disinformation out there now.
Yes, and
Yes.
very few people are able to wade through all that or have the time and resources to go through it all and make rational decisions on modern issues. They
And
can't.
children, they teach their kids how to do that. We don't do that.
And that
Gary.
that directly ties into some of the stuff I wanted to show you and talk about with you.
Well, all I wanted to say is that in the time of the founding fathers, there was a good discussion about agrarian versus industrial cultures, urban versus rural culture. But we've grown another economy that's post-industrial called the service goods and services. And I don't know if we've ever really gotten a handle on managing that kind of diversity in terms of thinking about how people make money. I mean, one of the reasons why I moved from Iowa to Minneapolis in 1988 is because I knew that there were career options for me that just didn't exist in Iowa. And
Absolutely true.
that's one of the reasons, and I used to talk about that when I taught, is that we have opportunities to do careers in a larger community that just they're not available in small towns. I think and I think that's a good thing.
Okay, I'd like David, if you could pick out a video to show us something about that relates to the future and
Mhm.
what effects might happen and what we could do, what is possible to do, make good outcomes.
I've got the list right here, David. I'm ready for whatever you want to do.
Yeah, well, I'm
Maybe you can't see it.
wondering if maybe it makes sense not to go that direction and to put one of the things I wanted to ask for as a scheduler for the Minnesota Futurists. I would dearly love to have a couple of meetings worth of discussion or presentation just sitting on the shelf for days like today, instead of me having to get up early and try and throw something together. Um,
You are correct. How do we
Put-
implement this?
put that in your background, put that in off to the side, and think of, is there a presentation you could put together that you could give anytime that's likely not to depend on the politics of the week? Um,
Yeah.
If we had 3 or 4 of those, that would help for days like today. I actually am reasonably happy with the way this has gone so far. I would be willing to show you a couple of short clips at the beginning of a couple of videos just to tease you with, there's more here that you might be interested in, but I'm not sure that's worth spending the last half hour to do. I have a couple of things I'd like to say about food and water. We're going to get back to energy. I'm sure, because that's going to come up more often than not. There are some very interesting things coming up in terms of improvements that are continuing to be made in solar photovoltaic that reduce the cost, increase the efficiency, and it's already the cheapest energy that we can produce in the world today. Fusion might get there. But it's not here yet. And even if it does, we're talking about thousands of degrees centigrade on Earth in a machine. That's going to be an engineering challenge to run if we're talking about the size of the economy that we have now, much less if we actually were to spread the wealth, as you give everybody access to electricity, give everybody access to cheap electricity. In the United States, we use it as if we had 6,000 slaves apiece. In the rest of the world, 300. There's probably a likelihood of getting to somewhere in the middle of those two for everybody if we chose to do it that way. That means reorganizing our economy so everybody could afford energy. How is that a benefit? Well, if everybody could afford energy, if we were short of water for drinking, we could process it from salt water for something under $2 or $3 a gallon. My wife and I filter all of our tap water and then add minerals back to it. We use less than a gallon of drinking water a day for our drinking water. So if you're talking 8 billion people, we need at least 8 billion gallons of water a day for enough water for those people. Our cost in the United States for a gallon of water is something under $5 a gallon. That's roughly the cost of gasoline. That's not a lot. $5 a day is a lot more than a lot of people in the world make with the economy organized the way it's organized. Do we want to change that? How could we change that? It would mean giving a lot of people in undeveloped countries higher pay for whatever kinds of work they're willing to do or that they want to do, and
Or that they
mechanizing
choose to.
a lot of the rest of the work that we need done to support our society. Could we reorganize our economy to accomplish that? I think the answer is clearly we could do better than we're doing now. But there are a lot of entrenched interests that would not think that was better for them. How could we address those issues? Planethood suggests that the Constitution of the United States was a new method of trying to address those kinds of issues. It's worked so-so for 250 years. We think better than a lot of places in the world. A lot of people would like to come here and try it if they could get in. In fact, a lot of the golden age of the United States, we were encouraging immigration, and particularly the intelligent people who could see the freedoms we had and the opportunities we had, and were willing to uproot their whole lives to come join us. And so we did pretty well in terms of innovation after World War II for about 25 years, where we were tapping the intelligence, the brain power of some of the brightest people in the world.
Yeah.
Could we organize the world's economy better? And what would that look like? Yeah, Stan and Carol, you had your hand up. Who was first?
Carol's first.
Okay.
Well, not to mention politics, but
You have to. I mean,
currently,
if we're talking about government, that is politics.
we are currently working at deporting the people who keep our dairy farms running, the people who pick our crops.
If you look at the way I described the meeting that I was trying to run today, or the topic that I was talking about, I asked if it was science fiction or fantasy. Talking about the United States today, we have a lot of trouble agreeing. And what I'm trying to say is that we don't have free and fair elections. So we don't have the constitutional arrangement that Planethood says had not been done before, was new,
With what?
Planethood says was new back in 1776 or 1780 when we actually
Oh, okay.
reorganized. There's another book called The Dawn of Everything that actually talks about why what was happening in the United States at that point and what happened in France shortly thereafter happened. And the dawn of everything suggests that it had a lot to do with the organization of government in the Indian tribes in the North American continent
Oh.
Yep.
previous to that time period. We still haven't really figured out how to solve local problems at local levels, community problems, or regional problems at regional levels, national problems at national levels, and international problems. We're stumbling at the moment with that international problems. We have recognized climate change as an international problem. We're not doing very well solving it. As I see it, the possibilities for solving climate change at an international level amount to making energy cheap enough that we can use automation and mechanical intelligence to solve those problems. Essentially, the way Rethink X is talking about ecology and energy.
When I was,
Did that answer your question, Carol, or were you asking a question?
No, I was making the comment that keeping our economy running is going to get more expensive real soon.
Unless we get smarter about it. The
Well,
change from fossil fuels to electricity, because electric motors run at 90 to 95% efficient, means we don't have to do all of the energy that we used to do when we ran our economy on fossil fuels.
yes,
That because fossil fuels are burned and produce electricity at 30% instead of 90%. If we can go to electricity directly, we don't have to replace as much energy. If we look at food and use more efficient methods, we can feed a lot more people with corn than we can feed with beef if we chose to do that. And we can make beef much more expensive if we make farmers pay all the real costs. I shouldn't say farmers. If we make the grocery store pay all the real costs of the food they're putting on the shelf. And the only way we would do that is through government management of the economy, taxes and incentives and subsidies. We can essentially put our finger on the scale any place we want to steer the economy any way we want to, if we can all agree that we want to, right?
We don't need all, we only need 51%.
I think that's a bad choice. And it's clear that 75% is a bad choice. That's too much. 51% is too little. We need to be doing a majority, but not running roughshod over the minorities. And 51% seems to be set up to do that, to run roughshod.
Mhm.
I read a book recently called The Tyranny of the Minority, where that's exactly what they're talking about. The minority has been able to say, well, we're not going to agree with you, and we're going to tie you up so that you can't get anything done in government either.
Seems to contradict what you were just saying.
Yeah, okay.
Mhm.
My
How-
point was that I
How
wanted to
do
go
I deal
back
with
to the idea of encouraging a vegetarian style version of the economy versus a meat eating version of
Yeah,
the economy
okay.
for two reasons. If you take the energy that's being supplied by the sun that provides for plants and so forth, if you eat that energy directly, you get, if you wait until you eat it inside of the animal that you're eating, you're losing 2/3 of that the sun's value.
Yeah. So if you're gonna talk about efficiency in feeding, you could feed a lot more people a vegetarian diet than if you're paying for a meat eating diet.
And then if you add to that the amount of fresh water or the amount of water that's being used to produce that non-vegetarian type of diet, that seems to be, and then you add to that the methane that's produced by cattle in the production of the beef. That seems, but then what happens is you get the whole cattle industry, the meat industry coming up and whacking you across the face. You know,
Right?
that's not going to
Okay.
happen.
Stan, thank you. That's what I call paying the real costs. In other words, if you're going to eat meat, you should be paying the real costs of the water and the feed. Carol?
Yeah, but technologically, we are right on the edge of being able to produce meat without animals.
So a disruptive innovation will
Yes,
be cellular agriculture.
yes.
No.
But I
And
mean,
Mhm.
we can do it.
it
It's
it
just that
is
we can't do
happening
it
now.
inexpensively.
Yeah, it's
But
happening
we're
now.
we're
It's
so close.
expensive, but the price is going to come down.
Yeah, we are so close to
Okay,
being able to produce beef in a vat,
right.
chicken
Yeah,
in a vat.
cellular agriculture.
Okay.
Yes,
Okay, are you done with your point?
yes.
Would you like to take your hand down?
Ooh,
Stan, are you done with your point? Okay, Tom?
Yeah, my point was actually quite a bit like what Carol just said. We need protein. I mean, eating corn is
No
really
question.
is really
Well,
not good for you. It doesn't. It gives you sugar and starch, but you know,
Beans.
and
I
vitamins.
gotta add beans, yeah.
Um,
rice and beans give
but
you complete protein.
hey, I'm talking. But fermentation and producing using microorganisms to produce protein in vats can be very much better for the environment as well as cheaper.
Yeah.
So once we get it going into full production, so there are solutions, but there are interests that don't want to see those solutions come to fruition because they're in competition with those entrenched interests. So that's the main problem that we're having with the energy sector too. So
Yes,
it's
yes.
it's endemic to our economic system. So how do we solve that question is to me the problem.
and the way I read Planethood, the Constitution was an attempt to give the rural population and the urban population the right incentives to feel like they were part of the discussion. The way I read the discussion about civil wars is that they happen on the group in the middle. If you don't feel like you're part of the power structure that makes the decision, your incentive is to blow it all up, to have a civil war and destroy it for everybody, as opposed to, in a lawful fashion, attempting to educate the rest of the population to your way of thinking. Tom, you had your hand up first, I think, and then Stan.
Yes.
The Constitution was a good idea at the time. It really was.
Mhm.
What
It worked.
happens is that the ground under it has changed. If you go to
I agree
the
with you.
if you go to the East Coast and you wander around in the halls of Congress and whatever down there, when we started, it was a record that someone built a 3-story building, and the top story was really only to hold the bells of the church.
Yeah.
We have changed from a society that went a little heap there into this. And I don't think structurally it works anymore. I think if you really wanted to do this and have something that worked, you're going to have to take, okay, well, Minnesota, St. Paul and Minneapolis and the 5 counties,
7-county metro area.
seven county metro area become their own state.
That's a
And we do
possibility.
that.
And would you keep that on in mind for a whole nother presentation? Because I think that would easily work to keep us talking for a couple of hours.
Because it's
I want to say one thing
it's
that
too,
you
the
back
difference
then,
is difference
there
is
were,
too big.
yeah, I agree. And I don't know how we can deal with it, and I don't know if we can deal with it, but I want to point to 2 things that were also the case back then that seem not to be the case now. Back then, the people that were writing the Constitution were highly educated for the time.
Yes.
Mm-hmm.
They had been to Europe to be educated in, some of them had been to Europe, and the books that they read were those that were from Europe mostly. And they were ethical.
Yeah.
They were also rich.
Yes.
They were the landowners. But the
Mm-hmm.
ethics that you read when you read about George Washington, he was seriously concerned about his soldiers, about his neighbors, about his wife's children. Dealmaker in Chief, I think, is the book that I was intrigued by. But that's a whole nother story also. The question about corruption versus ethical behavior is one that I think would be worth lots more discussion, but probably will finish out today's discussion without getting to any of the videos, unfortunately.
I'll post them all in the video, in the chat.
Well, yeah, you can certainly do that.
The video that you have with this is gonna have, I'm gonna post them all in that.
Oh, okay.
My quick discussion I wanted to say is that I think it was Ken Burns when he did the movie
Yes.
series about the Revolutionary War, points
Awesome.
out
Awesome.
there were essentially three political mindsets: loyalist, constitutionalist, or people who are for the Continental Army, for the United States, and then there was basically indifferent. And that was maybe one third, who were kind of, well, we'll see what happens kind of thing.
Yeah. Well, and there's lots of different ways you can analyze things like that. I would have to say that a lot of the people who are just trying to make enough money to feed their families, whatever that looked like back then, were not part of the group that wrote the Constitution. So I could easily believe there was easily a third of the population at that time that were in that economic category. The people who wrote the Constitution were essentially tax dodgers. At least the British king thought they should have repaid Great Britain for sending an army to protect them in the French and Indian Wars, which had gone on for 20 years before they wrote the Constitution.
More like 60.
Yeah, okay. So my numbers are just close.
That's
Maybe not
okay.
even close. Carol, you had something?
Yes. I am really iffy about this worship of the original Constitution as having been done by ethical people. The original Constitution had a fugitive slave clause built into it.
Yeah.
I mean, come on.
Ethics, well, but ethics has a lot of different facets, and you can discuss it a lot of different ways. I guess what I'm thinking,
and ethics,
there were
then,
some of the politicians in the early 25 years, 50 years of the United States as a organization who considered the benefits for the majority of the population over the benefits for themselves.
Yes. Yes.
And I don't see a lot of that today. And I see the incentives
Key point.
under those circumstances. If there is a wisdom of a crowd, the incentives of that crowd should make a difference for how they organize their economy. And if that happened, a lot of us would like to join that crowd. Okay, that's what I'm trying to say in terms of science fiction. Thinking that we can make it happen may be fantasy. That's why my question: science fiction versus fantasy. Eric?
Well, first of all, you skip over. They were not just tax evaders. There's the thing of taxation key without representation. That was absolutely key. Yes,
but we have taxation with representation right now.
We did not have then. in Britain, and they would not concede at all on that. So it's
Oh,
under
I
the
agree.
rulers of
I'm not
Britain.
arguing that.
Okay, so they were not just a bunch of rich tax evaders that caused the revolution.
But they were rich,
Yeah, well,
and
general,
they were not happy with King George's taxes,
yeah,
and they were trying to change that.
with
And they felt they had to revolt in order to change that.
do you think it's at all reasonable that 3 million people, I was Britain, 10 or 12 million then, and that they should have total, or a few people in a faraway little island should have total
I
control
agree with
over?
you. I agree with you.
I mean, yeah, I agree. They should have paid taxes, to help pay out in French and Indian War and so on. But
Yeah.
and then Franklin, he's a struggle. He
it's
did his best for many years to try to reconcile with England. It was only gradually he realized it was hopeless. The
Yep.
people ruling England would not give up at all.
It took hundreds of years for that to change, and I'm not sure that it changed. Brexit was not really very good for most of Great Britain,
Oh, it's
but yeah,
it freed him
H. Tom?
somewhat from the monstrosity that's running the EU.
Well, the EU has challenges. Great Britain has challenges.
But they're in their own almost dictatorship now, which is sort of separate, but also arguably as bad. They've lost freedom of speech, and representation of the working class totally. The
And
ruling
we're
elite do
working
not
on it.
care about all these white working class girls being raped in droves by basically invaders, alien Muslim invaders. I'm sorry, but that's reality. And all the
It's
money that
one
was
way
spent
of
on them
looking at
is now going to
immigration.
put up all these invaders in hotels. They're on the verge of civil war if they were, except they don't have any way. The native working class is not at all organized. It's the only reason they aren't actually fighting to restore their rights and take back their country, is because
Yeah.
they're not
So,
organized. They need a leader, a leadership.
well, and they need to feel like they are part of making the decisions instead of somebody making them for them. H. Tom?
The whole idea of rights is a modern invention.
Yes.
Um,
That make it bad?
I'm not sure
Progress
it's good
is a
or
modern invention. Does that make it
no.
bad? No.
Progress is not a modern invention.
The way we do it is.
Heraclitus talks about progress, so no, it's not new. I forget what was I going to say.
Right.
It'll come back.
The Stamp Act is really what turned the key to the revolution, because it made legal commerce almost impossible. It was perhaps miswritten in England, but you needed stamps for almost every kind of purchase. It was like a general sales tax, except instead of just paying a little more money, you had to get an actual stamp. You had to go to the person who sold the stamps, get the stamps, get glue, do your purchase, and then take the document back and have the stamp affixed. It was a bureaucratic's dream. And they were really going to control everything.
Sort of like California.
People in California have made that comparison. it's I said this in the chat, but I'm going to say it again. If you want to understand the Constitution, you have to read the Federalist Papers. This is the collection of arguments that won. You should also read the Anti-Federalist Papers, which is about 7 to 10 times as long. These are the people who lost. Their predictions of modern society are much, much more accurate. They understood what the long-term consequences of the Constitution would be. It doesn't help any, but when you look at the idiots, yes, this is what the wise people at the time thought, and they were right, and now we're stuck with it. Thank you, David.
Except that if the trends that we see occurring continue the way they're going, there are going to be less of us stuck with it within the next 50 years. So it seems to me it's worth talking about what we would like to see our economy change to in order to have everyone be part of the process. That is, feel like they have a say in the direction that we're going, and figure out how to do without some of the corruption, most of the corruption. Figure out how we need to manage our economy, manage our money, so that it could be more sustainable than what we're doing now. Clearly, if we think we can run government with a deficit that increases every year, eventually that's not sustainable.
We'll pass a law.
Yeah.
The Office of Management and the Budget says we're going to be spending most of our money paying the interest on the federal debt within the foreseeable future. That
Aren't we
seems
already
to be
doing that?
mathematically a no-brainer. You
That's only
can't
math.
keep doing it. Yeah, it's not even, it's high school math.
The last time we had a surplus was during Clinton's administration when Al Gore was tasked with finding the efficiencies. He did.
Yeah. And
that was
the
more than 25 years ago, wasn't it?
The modern population does not know math.
I don't know much of anything important. So
They really do not understand how mathematics works.
I don't know if Stan is still here, but I'd like to see him post those videos in the chat because it's hard to get it on Meetup once the meeting's over.
Okay, I can probably post them, but not easily in the chat, and it's pretty extensive. Can you put them on the chat, Stan?
I'm going to put them in the chat, but keep in mind, it'll be as a Word file, which
That's
means
fine.
that you won't be able to get that by saving the chat. You've got to download it out of the chat. But what I'm going to do is when I do the video for this meeting, I'll post it in that video.
Okay. Well, that's two ways to do it.
Okay, I'm going to do it right now.
But the thing you need to remember is that while I put a bunch of interesting videos in there, I did not expect to get to more than about the first page. And even those, I was not expecting to use more than a few minutes at the beginning of a couple of them. We've talked about many of the ideas that were on that outline. And I don't think we've talked about many of the ideas that I wanted to address. One of the ideas about water that I wanted to present is that at this point, a lot of the fresh water is being, quote, managed by the federal government or the state governments, and not well. The tyranny of the minority is a big deal. Fresh water doesn't have to cost that much. And we know with cheap enough energy, we can produce a lot more of it. Either through distillation or through reverse osmosis at an affordable cost. Not affordable to grow agriculture, but affordable to feed people, to hydrate people. I didn't get into agriculture at all, but there are 3 or 4 different kinds of plants that are not popular today. Watercress comes to mind. Spirulina comes to mind. Pond scum comes to mind. Pond scum and spirulina reproduce their weight in 2 days with the right nutrients in the water. The right nutrients include the sewage that we were talking about from the cities. They do not include heavy metals, which a lot of cities put in their sewage. So you'd have to figure out how to deal with that first. We could make our food system much more efficient than it is now, much cheaper and available to everyone if we could fix the economy. We make enough food now to feed everyone. It's just not evenly divided. I didn't get to even talking about inoculation theory that's within the first page. And that's a text document. Let me put that one in the Zoom, in the chat. Where is it now? Come on. I can't find my mouse. That's unfortunate because then I'm not, oh, that's why. Okay, can you see that in the chat? It's actually an article.
Yeah.
It's not a video, it's just an article, but I would highly recommend people take a look at that. I think it has a video in it. How do we decide what we're going to believe? How do we teach people how to understand fake news? How do we even tell what propaganda looks like? Yeah, Eric.
A good start is absolutely essential, and I found myself in there sometimes is Kahneman. Read, it's a big slog. Kahneman's Thinking Fast and Slow, and understand it and accept that it applies to all of us. He admitted it applies to himself, and he was so incredibly, probably a genius, I'd call in psychology.
He
I, I saw myself in there making some of the flaws in thinking. It's flaws that all of us have because of our evolution.
yep.
And that's a start. And then there is, on the societal front, there's Eric Hoffer's True Believer. Anyone reasonably average intelligence would be able to understand that. And it's about the nature of mass movements, which occurs again and again. And it's the same.
Oh,
And then what is it? Another book is 1840, Extraordinary Popular Delusions and the Madness of Crowds. I'm blanking the name, but it was many of the great investors, when you ask them what is the best books to read about investment, they say start with that one. It starts with the tulip mania, the witch mania, and these popular things like the woke mind virus. It's nothing new. These phenomena have occurred throughout history and before. Communism, Nazism, the Great Leap Forward.
and those ways of organizing your government tend to be um, tend to end in a strong man taking over,
Yeah,
which is corruption.
yeah, well, yeah,
It's
Well,
it's
depends
certainly
on the
not
strong man.
It
yeah.
yes, and if you look at Gaddafi, he actually did some very good things for his country.
Mhm.
Yeah, I lived with a guy, a Libyan, who was getting the first doctorate in biochemistry, and he liked Gaddafi. This was mid 70s,
Yep.
because, among other things, he said that he would pay, he was really sharing the wealth. He said he will pay full fare for any Libyan to go to any school or university in the world that they can get into. And Abdul was getting about 3 times what stipend that any American grad students I knew were getting. So I think his main flaw was that he didn't create jobs for them back in Libya. I'm guessing that's one of his main failures.
And so the question is that a good form of government?
Well,
Yes,
in
if you
some
can get a
ways,
good strongman, but it is not sustainable.
right. And it tends to
Yeah,
lead to corruption. And like all governments, they get more corrupt as they go. And
And
you have to
so,
get more brutal. The Shah did some great things for Iran,
yep,
but he had to get more and more brutal
to stay in power. So
yeah,
that's
both
what
the
I'm
communists
talking
and
about.
Islamists utterly ruthlessly trying to kill him and overthrow him. So
Yep.
you have to be brutal to
Well,
do that.
that or find a better form of government where it
the
doesn't
problem
require.
the problem of government is finding a replacement Cincinnatus every 4 years.
Is
The
should
the Greek I mean the Roman or whatever that didn't want power. He just wanted, after he led a war successfully. He didn't refuse to stay in government. He wanted to go back to his farm. Yeah, that's what ideal.
and that's the way George Washington was
Yes.
treating his
Yeah.
service also.
Yeah.
That's
So
and that's what I forget which king it was when Washington refused to run for a third term.
Yeah.
He said, "It is true. He is a real Cincinnatus."
Yeah. Yeah.
And one of the highest awards you can get in the American military is the Cincinnatus Medal.
okay. This is probably a good place to stop. I don't see any hands.
Well,
We're well over our 12 o'clock
Yeah.
cutoff time.
if you want stuff, I can send you basically say videos and put them up for you that are generally important. It's really hard to get ones that are the right length and the right level of difficulty and that are still really say something that's substantial. Like I just found one by interview of who was it? Oh, an eminent physicist who's a great blogger now, and he was interviewing it was an Indian mathematician who wrote a book I have and only started, is Why Machines Think. Although top people disagree with the word, it should be how machines think. It tries to explain, which we have to understand to have any idea about AI, is the limit, how LLMs basically work and their limitations and what could replace them. He tries to go through, it's about a little short, about an hour, but he tries to do it without any significant math. The book has math, and I want to read the book more. But
That sounds like an excellent topic for a presentation, Eric.
yeah, it's
When
about
can
an
I
hour.
put you down?
Well, I don't know. I'd have to. I'd want to be comfortable. I'd want to finish this book, which does have a lot of math, and they take away. There's so many books.
Right. So many
LLMs are
books,
not
so little time.
Yeah.
LLMs are not the only form of AI.
Huh?
LLMs are not the only form of AI.
Right, and they are they're very limited in some ways. They do not really, but in themselves, have the necessary model of the entire world in physics, which they need. They don't have any long-term memory, and they don't keep learning, as he says. One flaw: when you train them, spend a huge amount of money and energy training them, but then they just stay that way. You can keep reusing them at that level, but they don't keep self-improving like I don't know why
It
people
sounds
don't.
like a good book to pay attention to and to
Well, it's a video.
explore.
I explain stuff, but he tries to do it without. Sometimes it's much easier if you do use the math.
There's a reason
Yeah,
mathematicians make money.
yeah, it's really easier to do stuff with math than without it. So,
Yeah, it's the language of science. What's next week, David?
Oh, I guess I'm not sure. Huh.
It depend on
Is any one of us
Betty.
presenting?
Somebody look at Meetup for me. I know I posted the presenter, and I don't think I've posted the topic.
Hold on. Transforming stupidity into critical thought in an AI age. See who's doing that. I don't
Bob Kaufman?
know. Yes, Bob Kaufman.
Oh, is this a 5 Saturday month?
Yes.
Okay. And I
Interesting.
think I'm the week after that.
I believe that's right.
Okay, I will send you a synopsis.
Thank you. That would help. Or a publicity blurb even.
Although you might think about maybe if Gene is it Petty?
Yeah.
If he comes back okay, you might slot him in and then push me back a week, which I wouldn't
Okay.
mind.
And then
Because
who
I
do
think
we
we have a
replace?
couple of open slots, but
Do we?
Oh, okay.
And
I can certainly do that.
following Carol is supposed to be me, the future of mental health care.
Okay. Send me an email with that, Tom, if you would please, and I'll post it.
Okay. Okay.
Thank you all for coming and discussing. Even though we didn't get to the videos, I will
Okay.
have some videos to show you at some point on the future of food if we were to become more efficient about producing it.